Welcome to Outside Views. Today we're discussing yet another Brexit-related challenge facing British citizens abroad. And this time it's about the 45,000 Brits in France who are now facing further hurdles regarding their post-Brexit residency status. For many, Brexit was supposed to be about sovereignty, taking back control, and restoring Britain's ability to make its own laws. But what often gets overlooked is that Brexit also meant losing rights. And for British citizens living in the EU, this loss of rights continues to create new bureaucratic obstacles. One of the major issues now emerging is that tens of thousands of Brits in France will soon need to renew or upgrade their residency permits. And this is not just a routine administrative process. It's a direct consequence of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. Back in 2020 and 2021, Brits who were already living in France were required to apply for a carte de séjour, a French residency card. This was necessary to secure their legal status post-Brexit. However, not all of them received the same kind of permit. Those who had been living in France for 5 years or longer received a 10-year carte de séjour, granting them permanent residency. But those who had lived in France for less than 5 years received a 5-year permit, meaning they would need to renew their status once their initial card expired. And now we have reached that point. Tens of thousands of Brits will need to go through another residency application process in 2025 and 2026. The problem is nobody knows exactly how this process will work yet. The French government has not provided full details on how these renewals will be handled. In the original residency application process, France set up a special online portal specifically for British citizens under the withdrawal agreement. This was separate from the system used by other non-EU nationals living in France. It's likely that something similar will be created for renewals, but as of now, there is no official confirmation. And this uncertainty is a source of stress for many British residents in France. Will the process be simple and streamlined, or will it require additional paperwork, proof of income, or other documentation? Under the withdrawal agreement, Brits who were legally living in an EU country before Brexit are entitled to permanent residency after 5 years. And this means that those renewing their residency permits should only need to show proof of their original card and continued residence in France. However, without clear guidelines, nobody knows exactly what will be required. The British Embassy in Paris has stated that it is in discussions with the French Interior Ministry to clarify the process, but at the moment, affected residents are left waiting for answers. This uncertainty highlights a broader issue that has affected British citizens across Europe since Brexit. The transition from EU citizens to third country nationals has been far from smooth. In theory, the withdrawal agreement was supposed to guarantee the rights of Brits who were already living in the EU before Brexit legally. That is another point here. But in practice, each country has implemented the rules differently. Some have made the process relatively straightforward, while others have imposed more complex and demanding requirements. Even within France, some British residents have reported inconsistent treatment at local prefectures when applying for residency permits. Another point of concern is how long this process will take. When France first implemented the Brexit residency application system, there were long delays in processing applications. Many people had to wait months for their residency cards to arrive. With up to 45,000 applications now due for renewal, could we see similar delays again? Will applicants face difficulties proving their residency while waiting for new permits to be issued? Well, these are questions that still have no answers. One thing that does appear to be confirmed is that Brits renewing their 5-year cards will not have to take the France's new language test for residency. Under a new immigration law passed in 2024, non-EU nationals applying for long-term residency in France are required to prove a certain level of French language proficiency. However, British residents who hold a withdrawal agreement residency permit are exempt from this requirement, although I wish much more would learn French. For many, this will be a relief. Learning French is, of course, an important part of integrating into life in France. But for those who move there later in life, passing a formal language test could have been a significant barrier to securing long-term residency. And what about the costs involved? Another point of concern is whether renewing these residency permits will come with a fee. For most non-EU nationals, obtaining or renewing a French residency card costs around €200. However, it is expected that the Brexit residency renewals will be free of charge. Again, though, this has not yet been confirmed by the French authorities. There's also the question of what happens to those who fail to renew their residency permits on time. Will there be a grace period? Will late applications be penalized? And what about those who have left France temporarily? Many British citizens in France travel frequently between the UK and the EU. Some may have spent extended periods away, but still consider France their primary residence. Will they face difficulties proving continued residence when applying for their 10-year card? And these are real concerns for many affected individuals. Another key issue is that Brexit has led to a decline in the number of British citizens moving to France. Prior to Brexit, Brits could move freely to France, find work, start businesses, or retire without dealing with complex bureaucracy. Now, they must go through the same visa and residency processes as other third country nationals. And this has made the idea of relocating to France far less attractive for many Brits. The number of British people applying for French residency post-Brexit has dropped significantly. At the same time, more Brits have opted for full French citizenship. Since the Brexit vote in 2016, around 17,000 British nationals have become French citizens. For some, this was a way to secure their rights permanently. For others, it was a statement of frustration with the way Brexit disrupted their lives. But for those who remain on residency permits, Brexit continues to create new challenges. Even though they were promised stability, they now face another bureaucratic hurdle. And while this renewal process may turn out to be simple, the lack of clear information at this stage is causing unnecessary anxiety. If Brexit had never happened, none of this would be necessary. There would be no need for special permits, renewals, or uncertainty. British citizens in France would still have the same freedom to live and work as they did before. But Brexit changed all of that. And for those affected, the consequences are still unfolding. The reality is that Brexit has made life more complicated for British citizens living in the EU. It has taken away freedoms and replaced them with bureaucracy. And while some may argue that Brexit was about reclaiming control, for Brits living in France, it has resulted in the opposite. They now have less certainty, fewer rights, and more administrative hurdles to deal with. And this is yet another example of how Brexit consequences continue to affect people's lives years after the referendum. And as we look ahead, it's clear that these issues are far from over. For example, on Saturday, I had the party meetings for the candidate elections for the next election. We still haven't had our general election on February 23rd, but there's also in my state a local election scheduled for September. And we have voted for our candidates. I'm one of those once again. For those who are watching my channel much longer, they know that I'm a deputy district mayor and I'm the top candidate for our district for the next election, and I'm the candidate for district mayor. And all EU citizens will be allowed to vote in this election in September. Until Brexit, that included the British living in my hometown, and we were a very big, I'm looking for a word here, a big garrison city for British soldiers in the past, before German reunification. And a lot of friends of mine that are living in the UK now have, for example, also been stationed here in my hometown. And a lot of Brits, because of that, stayed here, because they married German women. In the case of a couple of friends of mine, they moved to the UK because he stayed in the army. But others, like my uncle, stayed here after marrying a German woman. And of course, in this case, it will be easier for them because they all obtained the German citizenship as well. But those Brits who came maybe later because they liked our city, because of their other family members that said, oh, this life is great there, come here, live here, try it. Any Brit that is living here in my hometown now without a German passport will not be able to take part in that election. And that is just one more thing I wanted to show. There have been a lot of rights lost. Not only the hurdles for residency, but real rights lost that you cannot repair with a resident permit or some residency card. The right to vote is gone. But thank you for watching Outside Views, and if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen.